Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lieutenant Stephen Rogers here at Campaign for America. It's 6:30 p.m. on the East Coast of the United States of America. Thank you for joining me this evening. In a moment, I'll have John McCann on, and we're going to be talking about one issue and one issue only tonight. This issue has been driven by people throughout the country who have been emailing us and messaging us within the past 24 hours. Why in the past 24 hours? There were primaries in some of the states around the country, and in particularly here in New Jersey. And I've got to tell you, folks, I've got a lot of encouraging and discouraging emails. And I want to talk about that tonight. And I'm also going to open it up. If any of you have any questions, I can see your chats right here. And what we're going to do is talk to you about them if you have any questions. But here's what I want to bring to your attention. As one writer said to me, he took a quote out of Walter Kelly's comic strip, which said, and it was from Pogo, "I have met the enemy, and he is us." Folks, as Republicans, it is very, very important that we follow the road of Abraham Lincoln, and we follow the road of Ronald Reagan, and we follow the road of Donald Trump. And that road leads to what? Unity for purpose, vision for America. The infighting has to stop. There's so much of it going on. It's discouraging to a lot of people, and it's just a lot more work for those of us who truly believe in the America First agenda and who truly believe that we can only move forward if we are willing to listen to those who are not necessarily in agreement with many of the policies we may be looking at, but at least in agreement with the overall mission of keeping America first. And what we're beginning to see is a great, great divide that is going to be very, very difficult to unite. I met at Jack Ciattarelli's victory party last night a number of New Jersey County chairmen and chairwomen. Great people, working very hard to do what? To ensure that the Democrat Socialist governor of this state is dethroned. But the only way this happens is if we come together after a primary and work together to do that. Now, I've got to tell you, something you may not know, maybe some of you do know this. You know, President Trump, if he decides to run for office again in 2024, or if he doesn't decide to run and he decides to anoint someone to run, that presidential candidate is going to need a Republican governor in every state, every single state. So what is our goal here? Our goal is to ensure that we have enough governors in the state and enough state legislatures that will support the next presidential candidate. Before that, folks, we need governors and state legislatures in every state as Republicans to do what? To offset the draconian laws, executive orders that the Democrat Socialists have been bringing upon the people of this country. So I don't understand the logic, and many people do not understand the logic to how is it that people will say, well, I'm not going to support this person. Why? Well, they're a rhino. Why? They're this, they're that. Well, let me tell you why you should support them, folks, because the mission, the vision is the same. Now, believe me, I do not support people who are opposed to the America First agenda. I do not support people, whether they're Republican or whatever, that are not supporting what is good for this country. So we're in agreement on that. But I disagree with people who say they're going to give up and not vote. I disagree with people who don't want to listen and understand that, guess what? At least if we get 60, 70% of the pie, we have a seat at the table. And we begin to make effective change by doing that. But unfortunately, at least here in New Jersey, I will tell you this, and I won't get too much into the negativity. I want to talk about the positivity and what we can do moving forward. There was an election here, a primary election, that did more damage to President Trump's efforts in the American First agenda than anything I've ever seen during the campaign season that I worked with him. That's right, folks. There are people going out there running against, and listen, it's very transparent, the candidate that I supported, running against him, that put fake endorsements out by President Donald Trump. There are others that put fake endorsements from this person and that person. We're better than that, folks. We're better than that. The fact of the matter is that when I say Republicans start acting in a manner that is irresponsible and just simply doesn't add to value to uniting but dividing, we're going to go nowhere. Case in point, state of New Jersey, 1 million more Democrats registered, 1 million more Democrats registered than Republicans, which means that if every single Republican came out and voted, we still lose. So what do we have to do? We have to work hard to appeal to who? The very people Ronald Reagan appealed to, the very people, now listen to me, that Abraham Lincoln appealed to, and the very people that Donald Trump appealed to. And who are those people? We knew we have the Republican base, okay? But all three, whether it be Lincoln, Reagan, and let me add Teddy Roosevelt in there, and in our lifetime, Donald Trump, they appealed to Democrat conservatives and Democrat moderates. And they won, and they won big. And we can do that again in every state, in gubernatorial races and in the congressional and presidential race. So when people say, well, I don't like the guy that got elected, let me tell you something. I did not support the guys that didn't get elected. But if one of them got elected, I would support them. Why? Because we have a opportunity to unseat a socialist. So who's the enemy? Is it a fellow American? Who's the enemy? Is it a Republican that is conservative, but not 100% the way certain people think? Who's the enemy? The enemy are socialists and communists who are looking to divide us. And you've heard that, I'm sure, on Newsmax, One American News, Fox, or whatever, whoever you see, whoever you talk to, you got to know who the enemy is. And then you got to do the best you could to conquer the enemy. So what do we do, folks? And I'm asking John McCann as he joins us tonight, Councilor John McCann. So, John, you've been listening. What do we do?
Well, Steve, having had some experience in this, the person who wins the race, in this case, Jack Ciattarelli, and you know this, it's incumbent upon him, and he doesn't have a lot of time to start reaching out. He himself has to be the bridge to that unity. It's not going to be our enemies. Our enemies are not going to be the bridge. They love what's going on. What's happening today, the day after the primary. It's always, when you lose, it's horrible, and there's a lot of ill feelings. But we do have a democracy, and the challenge is on that winner to unite the base of the Republican Party. That's what Ronald Reagan did. And even that's what Donald Trump did in 2016. There were 17 Republicans running in that race. I believe, 18 Republicans in total running in that race. And it wasn't until late in the primary season where the president, Donald Trump, secured the nomination. And even then, he had a fight on the floor of the GOP convention. And he had to hire someone just to make sure that there was no other subterfuge going on. That's politics. But at the end of the day, between the convention in November, President Trump's leadership brought the Republican Party unity, and he kept all the new voters with him, all the Reagan Democrats that had voted for him, the working class, the middle class Americans who came out for the first time in years, because frankly, a Republican Party who abandoned them for 20 plus years since Ronald Reagan. So Mr. Ciattarelli has his work cut out for him. But, it takes two sides. If one side is offering an olive branch and another side is not, that's going to portend very badly for the Republican Party in November.
Well, you bring up good points. I agree with you 100%. Jack Ciattarelli is going to have to reach out, and he is. He is. Folks, let me tell you something. I'm not the only, I'm probably the most visible and well-known advocate and member of President Trump's campaign advisory board from the day he came down the escalator to even today. If you don't think I'm not speaking to people who I've worked with, well, I am. And the fact of the matter is that they get it. They get it. We may not agree on a lot of different issues, but we do agree on this one fundamental fact. We've got to beat the Democrats, the socialists, and the communists. Now, Jack, I'm sorry. John, a gentleman just came up and said Jack has said many disappointing things. Police aren't happy with him at all. Well, I'm gonna say this to you. I've met with a lot of police officers over these past several months. Yeah, there are some things he has said that are disappointing. Do people forget that I spent 38 years on a police department? Do people forget that I was a union president, a PBA president, local? Do people forget that? I'm sure they do. It was some time ago. I don't forget what was done to us by Christine Todd Whitman, and to a certain degree, Chris Christie, regarding our cost of living increases, our pension. I don't forget that. But what makes you believe in any way, shape, or form that Jack Ciattarelli is going to go down that same road? What makes you believe that? And would it be incumbent upon us, as John McCann just said, to reach out, as he has, by the way, and to be able to sit down at the table and try to get this resolved? I spoke to hundreds of retired officers in this state, and they feel, you know what? We lost a lot, and we did over the years with regard to pensions and with regard to our cost of living increases. But somebody's got to be willing to sit down and have a discussion. And I will tell you this, folks. I will tell you this. He is willing to sit down and have a discussion regarding anything, and he has. I could bring people here from the NRA, Second Amendment Society, all of them. I could have them sit down here on this broadcast and tell you exactly, and they'll tell you exactly the conversations they had with him regarding the Second Amendment. And they were happy with him. So it goes back, John, to what you said. He has to reach out. He has been reaching out. And it's incumbent upon us, as you say, if somebody reaches out with an olive branch, we have to stop yelling and screaming at each other. And we have to take the olive branch and say, okay, here's where we agree, but here's where we disagree. What do we do to fix it? Lincoln did that. John Lincoln did that in the Civil War. When people were fighting people, Reagan did that with Tip O'Neill. And today, believe me, they would be called rhinos in the 21st century because they decided to sit down and say, look, maybe I can't get this, but I can get that. And we're working so hard. Trump supporters, Reagan supporters, Republicans that get it are working so hard to dethrone every single Democrat socialist governor in this country. But we cannot do it alone. John?
Well, the individual constituencies that you would think naturally should support a Republican nomination or a nominee, in this case, Jack, they do, and you know this, Steve, as your credentials indicate, there are some legitimate concerns. But when there's legitimate concerns, that is the opportunity for people to build bridges. And no one person and I can satisfy all the constituents in the state of New Jersey. And the constituency of police officers in the state is a little bit anomalous, as they support someone whose party is tearing apart their profession. Now, it may be they get a little bit more of a health benefit here or there, but at the end of the day, if you're a manufacturer and you're manufacturing a good that's going by ways of the past. For example, if you are a horse and buggy whip manufacturer at the time when the automobile was ascending in the United States, and your company and you came in to report in a meeting saying, hey, our competition just went out of business and we're picking up 100% of the market. You're picking up 100% of a dead market, a market that's dying. And that's an economic analogy, but it's the same in politics. The individual constituents that raise legitimate concerns, and they all do. And I would include the teachers in that. The teachers union itself has been basically pro-Marxist, the union leadership, I should say. But the members of those groups are very amenable to discussions with people that are not trying to kill their profession or kill their families.
All right, let's talk about that for a minute. I agree with you 100%. All right. The Republican Party of this state, with its leadership, very poor when it came to the police in the past. All right. Mm-hmm. But saying that, here's the alternative, John. Phil Murphy, sanctuary cities, illegal immigrants, defund the police, civilian review boards. Need I go on? These policies are putting the life of these cops in danger. Yes, and I've tried to share with cops all over the state. Sometimes you got to take a step back, take a deep breath, and what is your priority? Is it the lousy 2%, the bones, the crumbs that they're going to throw you, or is it your life? And that's the problem that I think we need to understand. And I've shared that with cops. And when we put it in those terms, they understand it. But also, as you said, We have to bridge a gap. You don't bridge a gap by yelling and screaming and calling names and on and on and on. You bridge a gap by using your head and being truthful and straight. And so this is the road that I believe we're going to be going down, which would be a healthy road. But saying that, it needs to be all hands on deck. I tell you what, John, I haven't talked to a police officer yet, and I've spoken to over 100 of them, all right, from all over the state. In fact, from all over the country, okay, who have told me that they're going to vote for one Democrat. Why? I asked them why. Had nothing to do with money. Had everything to do with their lives and their careers. So you have people here in New Jersey and maybe in some other state. I'm going to vote for this Republican or that Republican. So a non-vote for that Republican is a vote for the Democrat socialist that is destroying you. That's why, John, last week, I didn't understand for the life of me how the Carpenters Union, after Phil Murphy in New Jersey and Joe Biden, nationwide, took their jobs, ruined their livelihoods, destroyed their future, and the Carpenters Union decides to endorse Phil Murphy. And these other unions, pipe fitters, and all these other unions decided to endorse Joe Biden. And I'm not blaming the rank and file. I feel bad for the rank and file because they have their own swamps. But what I'm saying is what is at stake, and I'm very passionate about this, I'm sure you can see, our country is in danger. And the CCP, folks, don't believe that the Communist Party, the Chinese Communist Party, and other socialist parties are not involved in what's going on. They want to divide us, and they will destroy us. Thank God, back in the 50s, 60s, and onward, Ronald Reagan saw that and stopped it. But I've got to tell you, Donald Trump saw that and tried to stop it. And I'll tell you, he did stop it. And he's working hard with those of us who get it to get some sort of organization together in mass to do what we must do in order to take our country back at the polls. And it was Reagan who said it begins in the dining room table. It was Trump who even said that. I was with Lara Trump about a year ago. She said the same thing. We're on a TV show together. What did she say? It all begins at home. So do we teach our kids, forget it, this person's this person's that? Or we teach our kids, look, you stand up, you speak out, never compromise on your principles, but at least be willing to sit down at a table and listen. And if the person that you're listening to doesn't satisfy you, then, John, wouldn't that be fair to say, well, I'm not going to support that person?
Sure. Again, I apologize for using metaphors, but you just said, sitting down at the kitchen table. And let's start there. If I've been married 31 years, excuse me. And if my wife and I agreed on every issue, whether it was child raising our kids or finances or even where to live, if we agreed on all those issues collectively, it would be a very anomalous relationship. So if you want to have a relationship, if you want to be in a two parent family and raise your children and not take offense to every thing that someone else says that's your partner, you have to in order to succeed, you have to prioritize what is the highest priority here. And you so very eloquently stated the highest priority here is that the barbarians are at the gate. Okay, the socialists and the communists are in the Democratic Party. They are rapidly getting most of the attention in the media, and the media themselves are complicit, and probably some of the members of the media probably have some sort of backroom complicit nature, are in league with some of these enemies of America. We see that. So in order for us to be successful and win, we're going to have to come together, and we're going to have to understand that if I can agree with my wife 49% of the time and believe that she's right, and by the way, 51% of the time I know she's right, okay? So, I mean, we really have to start there. And you've seen it in the Republican Party. This has been going on going back to the early 2000 movement when George Bush first ran. He wasn't the ideal candidate. He had himself some issues with the Republican base as well. But again, so the question becomes, think about 9/11, for example. Can you imagine if Al Gore was the president during 9/11? Did I agree with everything that George W. Bush did and said? And no, but I agreed with most of it. I agreed with a lot of it, and could never fathom a response to 9/11 under a president like Al Gore. Okay, with a person that lacked credibility, lacked character, and was making a ton of money while promoting a book and an agenda that's been proven false. So if we don't do this, we will lose the country. And it starts at the dining room table. That's where it starts.
You know, folks, behind the scenes for a year and a half, many of us who are working with the Trump people, if you will, like I said, we're still working with the advisory board members and are working with Republicans all over the country. I'll tell you something, what else has been going on. My wife and I and others, we have been doing some traveling. And particularly my wife, Natasha, has spoken to Democrat groups. Why would she want to speak to Democrat groups? Not to change their party. We don't care about whether they label themselves Republican or a Democrat, but to get them to change their attitude towards America. And when she talks to them, and John, she could do this better than anybody I know, because I've given speeches on communism and socialism. But when she told them, the audiences she was in front of, a few of them were the Walkaway movement group. When she told them that she was raised in a country with a red flag and a hammer and sickle, when she told them how they went to confession as Catholics and they were confessing their sins, it wasn't a priest, it was a KGB agent. When she told them that you're going to go to school and you're going to measure up to these standards or you're going to be out of school and maybe in Siberia. When she told them that you don't have your own apartment, that you don't have your own job, you have no freedom and liberty. When she told them that, they were stunned, they were shocked. And then what really shocked them is when she said, we're headed down that road. So it isn't a question about just supporting a political party, as she said. It's a question about supporting America, America first, American values, the Constitution of the United States. I'm all for getting rid of people that do not stand on the Constitution. I'm all for getting rid of people that constantly divide, and just don't want to listen and bring us together. I'm all for that. But I've said this over and over again, John, and you know I've said this. We're letting, I think, we as Republicans who work on the America First agenda, Republicans who are looking to bring civility back to our own party, Republicans who are looking to have people listen more than talk more. I think the end of the day is, unless we do that, we're going to be drowning in a sea of our own noise.
Someone once said, in a democracy, you get the government you deserve. If we stay at home and we don't come out and vote, in this case, to oppose an agenda that's pretty clear, if you believe that Black Lives Matter and all lives matter and Black lives do matter, but if you believe in the Black Lives Matter movement's agenda, which is against the nuclear family, which is pro-socialist and pro-communism, which is to defund the police, which is to attack people and elevate people by dividing them through race. If you believe in those things, then yeah, stay home, because that's what it comes down to. But if you don't believe in those things, those very basic fundamental principles of freedom and liberty, and to take care of our children in a safe manner without being indoctrinated, then you have to go out and vote. And you should vote for the opposition. The closest analogy that I can come to on a broad scale was World War II. Okay, the United States of America came into the war. They really, one of the hesitations was, how to come into the war, and do we really want to side with then the Soviet Union against Adolf Hitler? And people forget the German Nazi Party was a socialist party. Okay, same in theory, different in structure than the Soviet Union. And if America didn't fight and choose to stand up against a higher enemy, if they had to choose between the Soviet Russia and the Germans in the Nazi Party, they decided the Nazi Party, which was, we know what their history is and track record of annihilation is. if they didn't choose to come down on that side of it, at least aligning themselves with another enemy, we may not even be here today. We may not even be here today. You know, if I may just touch upon the results of the election last night. You know, so I see that it looks like Jack Ciattarelli got 49% of the vote. Rizzo took 26%, Singh 22%, and Levine 3 to 4%. So if you total that up, that number is higher. A higher number of Republicans did not vote for Jack, but in our system of government, he's the winner. And so now you may lose 3 or 4 or 5% of that vote, but I believe with strong leadership, with people like yourself and Mr. Ciattarelli directly, that other 50% of the Republican base is there to be taken back through discussion and dialogue. And if he doesn't do it, we're going to lose our kids in this state and in this country.
And I believe he understands that. I believe he knows that. And this is why, John, and you eloquently put this together, that we have to be willing to sit down and have a conversation. We have to be willing to say, look, amongst all the yelling and screaming and everything else, we need to sit down and have a conversation. I know as a fact, he is willing to do that. But you know what? Are we willing to do that? When I say we, you know, as a party, I believe we are. You know, you have the establishment, you have the grassroots. We're in a unique position here at Campaign for America because we're a bridge between the establishment and the grassroots. And we've been at the table. We've been at the table of both sides. And you know what's amazing? And John, you said it all. It's a matter of leadership. John, I know you could sit down with both sides, you know, and you could sit down like Reagan did with Tip O'Neill and Lincoln did with the South. You know, you sit down. I know you could sit down and be able to talk to both sides and say, all right, let's come to some agreement. That's where the leadership is needed. And by the way, you know who was great at that? Donald Trump. Donald Trump, very successful, folks. A lot of people who are doing a lot of complaining don't remember the art of the deal. Don't remember that Donald Trump, a successful, probably one of the most successful businessmen in the world. You know, I don't listen to all the garbage that people throw at him. I look at facts. And the fact is, this guy, nothing was handed to him on a silver platter if you read his history. So he built everything he had, all right, on his intellect, not on emotion, folks. I really mean it. People may say, you're kidding me? He's emotional. He's passionate. But he built it on what? He built it on the wisdom that God gave him. He built it on his business instincts. He built America again, based on what? On what he had in his heart, soul, and spirit. And he used the talents and skills to negotiate. And John, you don't sit down and negotiate with a friend. You sit down and you negotiate with opposition. Let me say this, John. It wasn't easy for him to bring the Abraham Accords. It wasn't easy for him to bring the embassy to Jerusalem. He sat down, I am absolutely sure, with a lot of different people that were yelling at him and screaming at him, you're this, you're that, you this. But he decided to do what was right for America. And you know what's right, folks? We sit down, as John, I love the way you put it. You sit down and you pass an olive branch and you say, look, let's get together. Maybe we'll agree to disagree on 5 points, but maybe on the 6th and 7th point, we'll agree. Now, John, here's something I'm going to let everyone know. All right, I tweeted it out there. I'm just going to let everybody know. You know, sometimes people say, well, all well and good. So what are you doing there, Lieutenant, to help heal the wounds? This morning, I sent a message via social media so nobody could miss it to Hersh Singh and to Phil Rizzo. And I've asked them, and I actually said, I hope that they pick up the phone and call Jack Ciattarelli and congratulate him, and that we begin to talk about healing and coming together. I offered myself and the resources we have to sit with them and to talk. And John, I was going to include you on that. We talked to these fellas and we say, let's come together for the good of the country, for the good of the state. And I say the good of the country, folks, because the entire country is looking at New Jersey. There's a lot more stake at here than our state. Because, John, this state, New Jersey, could be the beginning of a red wave across this country. And I believe people need to understand that. So I don't know. I don't know if they've called. I don't know if they're going to call. They certainly didn't get in touch with me. But folks, we've got to. What's that scripture, John, that says, "Turn our plowshares, or turn our weapons, our swords into plowshares"? It's the time to do that, John. This is the time to do that.
Yeah. And if we don't do it, we're going to lose not just New Jersey, but the country, because these are the types of things that snowball. And I just want to, I've said it once earlier in this podcast. I want to repeat. Donald Trump was in a primary with, I forget the exact numbers, 17, 18 other Republicans. And that was not an easy get. Okay. That is as divided as you can get in a Republican primary. And it was his leadership that brought everyone together and the belief in him. And if the other side, I use my marriage or anyone's marriage, a successful one, as an analogy. If my wife doesn't want to sit at the table, I can't make her. I can't make that happen. But again, marriages have higher purposes, especially when you have children. Okay, you've made commitments to each other, and you have the responsibility of raising children. And we all know what the results are if in single parent families versus 2-parent homes. So you have to somehow figure that out. And if we can't figure that out, if the other side says, I'm walking away from the table, I'm afraid there's nothing we'll be able to do. But there is something on that Jack Ciattarelli can do. He can do tonight. Whether they called him, congratulated him or not, is really not relevant. Although it takes class to lose and congratulate. I know you've done it. I've done it. But I do believe that he shouldn't wait for those calls. I believe he should make those calls, and he should bring those other candidates into the tent.
Maybe he has. I don't know. It's a good point. Maybe he has. Yeah. I don't know if he did that.
And to the enemy of a leader, according to de Tocqueville and Machiavelli, is vanity, indignity. Indignation is the enemy of anyone who wants to be a successful leader. So you can't be indignant here and win. When you're the winner, if I'm sitting there waiting for, well, they didn't call me, they didn't text me, I can turn that into, that other side has no class. You can say that. But the fact of the matter is you won. You're the one who has to say, you know what? They must be feeling terrible tonight. You know what? I'm going to reach out to them, and I'm going to congratulate them on running a spirited campaign and offer them a place at the table in my campaign. I've done that. But I said it. Yeah, it works. But it takes two.
And he may have done that. I don't know. But it's a good point. Now, another thing is this. I mentioned Lincoln and Reagan a lot, Teddy Roosevelt a lot. Well, let's talk about Donald Trump again. How is it that Donald Trump was able to get Ted Cruz and others who were against him, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, and others, into the tent? Because Donald Trump didn't hold a grudge. The guy's remarkable. He knew in his heart, I got to pull this party together. So you know what? We did this, we did that. All the name calling, but at the end of the day, we're all Americans. And he brought them in. And look at who are his most avid supporters. And there are many folks. I can tell you there are many around the country that you've seen on television that were not Trump supporters in the beginning.
But let me talk you there for a second.
Sure.
Let's talk about that. Yes, he did that, but it took two. And think about this. How personal were those attacks in the Republican primary in 2016? In 2016. Think about that. Little Marco, you remember that? Marco? I mean, or how about the Ted Cruz's father, okay, yes, was attacked in that campaign. Now, that was not by the president directly, that was by campaign. But think about that. So kudos, not just to the president, but kudos to those who were not indignant, to Senator Cruz, to Marco Rubio. Kudos to them. Who knows if they get along today behind the scenes, whatever. But they did come together for the good of the country. They both suffered direct personal insults by their opposition in winter, okay? And if they didn't come to the table no matter what deal, no matter what was on the table that was put there by President Trump, we never would have won the election. Okay. And how about the senator from South Carolina, Lindsey Graham? Okay. Another one who was viciously and personally attacked. His cell phone number was given out. Okay. Yet who is one of President Trump's strongest supporters to this day is Lindsey Graham. So kudos to Mr. Graham as well. And all the other Republicans that took defeat and did not take it personally and realized, there's a scale of 0 to 100 issues on the table. And I know this. I know that maybe Jack Ciattarelli has said something you didn't like or has taken a position that's not passing a litmus test for you. But here's my litmus test. I know for sure that Jack may disappoint me or may not disappoint me in other matters, but I know this. He's not a socialist. He's not a communist. And I know he will not tolerate socialism in our schools and socialism as part of the fabric of New Jersey, which is now apparently on the agenda with the Democratic-controlled legislature and governor. I know.
Well said, John. Well, folks, that's going to wrap up our program tonight. It was one topic that we felt necessary to discuss. And all I'm asking you to do is to think about uniting, be part of bringing people together. Look at it. John, I'm sure we've been around a long time. All the name calling, all the screaming, all the yelling, it does nothing. It does absolutely nothing but hurt our party and hurt the country. And in this case, hurt our state. I know in other states they have the same issues. But John, you put it real well. The enemy isn't us, as it says Pogo, all right? The enemy is the communists and the socialists. And whether it be Jack Ciattarelli who won, or Hersh Singh, or Phil Rizzo, look at all Americans, folks. I know in campaigns, and John, you know it, there are a lot of emotions. Things are said, things are done that shouldn't be done. But we, the people, we say we, the people of these United States, we have to be willing to say, you know what, enough's enough for the good of the country, for the good of the state. And in this case, John, and I think this is really important, for the good of the America First movement. If people don't want to be part of that, let them go, because they'll suffer, like my wife said, they will suffer. They will suffer dearly on their socialist communist agenda. But those in support of the America First agenda, and John, like you said, so we disagree on 1, 2, 3 issues, but the fact of the matter is we have to be able to look our brother and sister Americans in the eyes like Abe Lincoln did, like Ronald Reagan did, and as you just articulated, like Donald Trump did, and say, look, let's have a cup of coffee. Let's sit down. Let's talk. And you know what? Let's put aside our personal agendas. Let's think about America's agenda, and that's America First. John McCann, thanks a lot for joining me tonight. We'll see you next Wednesday.
See you next Wednesday, Steve.
All right, folks, thanks for joining me. You can email me. I think our email's there. You go to campaignforamerica.com. to our website. We have a contact page there, and just drop me an email, and let's do this again, folks. I hope you're enjoying our new format, our new get together here. We got a lot more guests coming on as we move forward, but we need to have the discussion. We need to do this, folks. And I've got a lot of comments here, and I thank you all for that. And maybe next week we'll have you actually ask some questions. We'll collect some during the week too. All right, John, thanks again. God bless you, folks. God bless America. Remember, keep our nation in prayer. And what is the chief end of man? To love and glorify God forever. Spread this. Spread the word, folks. Share this video. Thank you again. Have a great week.